The return. The void of space split open like a wound as the first human warship emerged. The Vindication, a massive vessel of gleaming obsidian and pulsing azure energy, materialized at the edge of the Arcturus system, home to the central governing planet of the Galactic Confederation. Behind it came another ship and another, until 50 warships hung in formation, their hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light, making them appear as moving shadows against the stars. Commander Ilara Voss stood on the bridge of the Vindication, her storm-gray eyes fixed on the holographic display showing Arcturus Prime. The jewel of the Confederation glittered before her, a verdant world of sprawling cities and crystalline oceans that served as the seat of the government that had condemned humanity to extinction 3 centuries earlier. Preliminary scan complete, Commander, reported Lieutenant Cato, his fingers dancing over the neural interface of his console. Confederation defense grid is active but primitive by our standards. Their quantum communications network is lighting up. They've detected us. Ilara nodded, a slight smile playing at the corner of her lips. At 43, she was relatively young for a fleet commander, but 3 centuries of exile had changed humans in ways the Confederation couldn't imagine. The neural enhancements visible as subtle silver lines beneath her bronzed skin were just the beginning. "Good," she said simply. "Let them see us. Let them remember." Everyone on the bridge understood. They had all grown up learning about Earth, about the day the Confederation Council had declared humanity too unpredictable, too dangerous to exist within the galactic community. The purge, as it was recorded in human history, had been methodical. Earth reduced to molten slag, colonies systematically bombed. Survivors hunted across the stars until the Confederation believed the human problem was solved forever. Except it wasn't. "They're hailing us," announced communications specialist Rivera, surprise evident in her voice. "That was fast," muttered Cato. "Put it through," Ilara ordered, straightening her obsidian uniform as the crew around her tensed visibly. The holographic display shimmered, and the image of a Zithrian appeared. Consul Zethran of the Confederation Council. The alien's 4 compound eyes widened upon seeing Ilara's unmistakably human features. The bony ridges on its elongated skull flushed a deep purple, what humans had long ago learned was an expression of extreme shock. "Impossible," Zethran whispered, mandibles clicking rapidly. "Your kind was eradicated." Ilara's smile never reached her eyes. "Eradicated? Is that the euphemism your history books use for genocide, Consul?" The Zithrian's exoskeleton paled slightly. "Who are you? How did your species survive?" "I am Commander Ilara Voss of the Turan Reclamation Fleet," she replied, her voice carrying the weight of generations born and raised in exile. "As for how we survived, the void between galaxies is vast and dark, Consul. When your ancestors began their purge, 23,000 of us fled beyond your reach in experimental vessels. We've been there ever since. Building," added Lieutenant Kaido from beside her. "Evolving. Remembering." "That was 300 standard years ago," Zethran said, secondary eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of rapid information processing. 312 years, 7 months, 14 days by your calendar, Ilara corrected. "We've kept precise count of every day since Earth burned." The bridge fell silent as the consul conferred with advisors off-screen. Ilara used the moment to study the being whose ancestors had condemned her species to extinction. The Zithrians had been the driving force behind the purge, convincing the other council races that humanity's unpredictable nature and rapid technological advancement posed an existential threat to galactic stability. "Commander Voss," the consul finally spoke, "we request a diplomatic meeting to discuss this unexpected development. We can assemble the full council within 3 standard cycles." "You have 12 hours," Ilara replied without hesitation. "We will send a delegation to your council chambers. Coordinates to follow." Before the consul could protest, Ilara nodded to Rivera, who cut the transmission. 12 hours doesn't give them much time to plan a proper response. noted Cato, his voice low, or to mobilize their fleet. That's precisely the point, Ilara replied. We've waited 3 centuries for this moment. They can wait half a day. The next 12 hours passed in intense preparation throughout the fleet. Humans who had trained their entire lives for this moment made final adjustments to equipment, reviewed diplomatic protocols, and tried to calm the storm of emotions that came with finally facing the civilization that had nearly wiped them from existence. In her private quarters, Ilara stared at a small hologram, a recreation of Earth as it once was, compiled from surviving data. The real Earth was now a barren, radioactive rock, stripped of its atmosphere and oceans by Confederation planet killers. Was it worth it? She whispered to the image. Everything we've sacrificed to get here. A soft chime interrupted her reflection. Commander, the diplomatic shuttle is ready, came Kaido's voice. Ambassador Chen is requesting your presence. 15 minutes later, Ilara stood in the shuttle bay facing Lin Chen, the fleet's chief diplomat. At 76, she was one of the older members of the expedition, with silver hair and the enhanced neural pathways visible as faint blue lines beneath her skin, one of many evolutionary adaptations humans had undergone. Having second thoughts, Commander? Chen asked, her piercing blue eyes studying Ilara. Just considering our options, Ilara replied carefully. Chen nodded. 3 centuries of planning. And now everything comes down to the next few hours. She adjusted the sleeve of her formal attire. The Council will try to stall, to gather intelligence on our capabilities. Let them try, Ilara said. The observable fleet is just Phase 1. The diplomatic shuttle departed the Vindication with minimal ceremony. As it approached Arcturus Prime, the planet's defense grid tracked its movement, but made no hostile moves. The Confederation, whatever else they might be, weren't fools. They knew they were facing an unknown quantity. The Council chambers were located in a massive orbital structure above Arcturus Prime, a symbolic gesture that important decisions affecting the galaxy should be made above planetary concerns. The shuttle docked at the diplomatic bay, where a contingent of Confederation security forces waited, their posture rigid with tension. Ambassador Chen led the human delegation, with Ilara and 5 other specialists following. The aliens escorting them represented the 7 major species of the Confederation. None spoke during the journey to the Council chamber, but their body language conveyed a mixture of fear, curiosity, and in some cases, disgust. The Council chamber itself was a vast circular room with elevated platforms for each Council member. In the center was a speaker's dais, currently unoccupied. The human delegation was positioned before it, intentionally placed lower than the Council members, a subtle psychological tactic not lost on Chen. This emergency session of the Galactic Confederation Council is now convened. Consul Zethran's voice echoed through the chamber. We are gathered to address the unexpected appearance of human vessels in Confederation space. Ilara scanned the assembled Council members. There were 12 in total, representing the founding species of the Confederation. Some she recognized from historical records: the Zithrians, the crystalline Korax, the gaseous Mavari contained in their environmental suits. Others were unknown to her, species that must have risen to prominence after humanity's exile. Ambassador Lin Chen of the Turan Reclamation Fleet introduced the Consul. You may address the Council. Chen stepped forward, her movements deliberate and unhurried. Honorable representatives of the Galactic Confederation, she began, her voice perfectly modulated. 312 years ago, your predecessors on this council made a decision that forever altered the course of our species. They deemed humanity too dangerous to exist within galactic society and enacted what you euphemistically term containment, but what was, in reality, genocide. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. One of the Korax leaned forward, crystal facets glinting. Ambassador, while historical events can be debated, the immediate concern is your fleet's presence in Confederation space without authorization. Authorization, Chen repeated, allowing a hint of incredulity to enter her voice. By what right does the Confederation claim authority over those it attempted to exterminate? The actions taken against Earth were regrettable but necessary, interjected a Mavari, its gaseous form swirling agitatedly within its containment suit. Your species was demonstrating aggressive expansion and technological development at an unprecedented rate. So we were killed for our potential, Ilara said, speaking for the first time. All eyes turned to her. For what we might become, not what we had done. The Council makes decisions for the greater stability of the galaxy, the Consul stated firmly. History has validated the concern. Now, a human fleet appears without warning, using technology we cannot classify, after 300 years of presumed extinction. You can understand our apprehension. Chen nodded slowly. We understand completely, just as we understand that the Confederation Defense Fleet is currently mobilizing from 6 separate sectors, converging on this position. The chamber went still. The Consul's mandibles clicked once, then went rigid. A precautionary measure, of course. Chen agreed pleasantly, just as our own precautionary measures were necessary. She activated a small device, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing not just the 50 ships visible to Confederation sensors, but an additional 500 vessels that had been concealed by technology well beyond the Confederation's understanding. By the eternal void, whispered one of the council members. How is this possible? 300 years is a long time for a species to evolve, Counselor, Chen explained. Especially one forced to survive in the intergalactic void without access to established resources or allies. Necessity breeds innovation at an extraordinary rate. The Consul's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of extreme stress. What do you want, Ambassador? Revenge. To do to us what was done to Earth. Ilara stepped forward to stand beside Chen. If revenge was our goal, Consul, this would not be a diplomatic meeting. Chen nodded. We come seeking justice, not vengeance. Acknowledgement of what was done to us. Reparations for our lost homeworld, and a guaranteed place in the galactic community that your ancestors denied us. Or, prompted the Consul. There is no ultimatum here, Chen replied simply. Merely a statement of what must be. The forgotten children of Earth have returned, and the galaxy will never be the same. How it changes, whether through cooperation or conflict, is now in your hands. As the council chamber erupted into chaos, Ilara's gaze met that of the Consul. In that moment of silent communication, both understood a fundamental truth. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted irrevocably. The Confederation's worst fear had been realized. Humanity hadn't just survived. It had thrived in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge. And now it had returned, transformed by centuries of exile into something far more formidable than the Confederation could have ever imagined. The reckoning had begun. The reckoning. The emergency session of the Galactic Assembly, a broader governing body than the Confederation Council, convened 3 days after the humans' arrival. Representatives from over 200 species crowded the massive assembly hall on Arcturus Prime, the atmosphere thick with tension and speculation. Ambassador Chen stood at the center of the human delegation, composed and dignified despite being the focus of thousands of alien eyes. Commander Ilara Voss stood slightly behind her, scanning the gathered representatives with calculated indifference. The past 72 hours had been a whirlwind of diplomatic maneuvers, veiled threats, and desperate attempts by the Confederation to gather intelligence on the human fleet. This extraordinary session of the Galactic Assembly is now in progress, announced the Assembly Speaker, a towering Nolari whose translucent skin revealed the pulsing of multiple hearts. We face an unprecedented situation that affects all members of the Confederation. The speaker's 6-fingered hand gestured toward the human delegation. The species known as humanity, believed to be extinct for 3 centuries, has returned with a substantial military presence. They have presented demands to the Council, which will now be shared with the Assembly. Ambassador Chen stepped forward. The chamber's acoustics amplified her voice without the need for technology. Esteemed representatives of the Assembly, I stand before you as the voice of humanity. a species that your civilization attempted to eradicate 300 years ago. We have returned not as supplicants, but as equals demanding recognition and restitution." A ripple of murmurs swept through the chamber. Chen continued, her voice unwavering. "Our demands are simple. Formal acknowledgement of the genocide committed against our species, reparations for our lost homeworld, and full recognition of human sovereignty in the galaxy." The assembly exploded into a cacophony of voices. The speaker raised all four arms, calling for order. The Confederation's historical position has been that containment actions against Earth were a necessary security measure. Does the Assembly Chair wish to respond? Consul Zethran rose from his seat. The Confederation acknowledges the severity of actions taken against Earth, but maintains they were justified by the clear and present danger posed by unchecked human advancement. We reject the characterization of these actions as genocide. Commander Ilara stepped forward, her movement causing immediate silence to fall across the chamber. Perhaps the Assembly would benefit from understanding exactly what you're dealing with. Her voice was cold, clinical. Ambassador Chen has been extraordinarily diplomatic. I am not an ambassador. She activated a neural implant, and the chamber's central holographic projector came under her control, overriding the security protocols with ease, a demonstration in itself. The projection showed Earth as it once was, a blue-green jewel spinning in space. "This was our homeworld," Ilara said. "Population, 8 billion sentient beings." The image shifted to show Earth under attack. Massive Confederation warships in orbit, firing planet-killer weapons that bored through the crust, triggering catastrophic geological events. The recording, salvaged from the black box of a fleeing human ship, showed cities burning, oceans boiling away, and the atmosphere being stripped by gravitic weapons. "This is what containment looked like," Ilara continued, as gasps and sounds of distress came from many delegates. 8 billion lives ended in less than 72 hours. Not combatants, not warriors, children, artists, farmers, scholars. She manipulated the display again, showing the systematic destruction of human colonies, the hunting of refugee ships. 2 billion more killed in what your historical records call the cleansing. Your ancestors were very thorough. The assembly had fallen completely silent now. Even Zethran seemed unable to respond. "You fear what humanity might have become," Ilara said, her voice barely above a whisper yet heard by all. "Let me show you what we did become." The hologram shifted once more, displaying the technological advancements humans had achieved in exile. Quantum phase shifting, gravitic manipulation beyond anything the Confederation possessed, biological enhancements that had transformed humans into something new. We survived in the void between galaxies, where no species was meant to endure. We built a civilization from the ashes of genocide. And yes, we remembered. Ilara's eyes swept the chamber. Every child born in exile was raised with the knowledge of what was done to us. 300 years of remembering. 300 years of preparation. Lieutenant Cato stepped forward, handing Ilara a small device. She held it up for all to see. "This contains the tactical analysis of your combined military capabilities. Your defenses, your weaknesses. We could have launched a surprise attack. We could have enacted our own version of containment against you." The tension in the chamber was palpable. Many representatives seemed to be preparing for an announcement of war. "But that is not why we have returned," Ilara continued. "Despite everything your civilization did to us, we did not become what you feared. We did not let vengeance consume us, though it would have been justified." She placed the device on the central dais. "Instead, we offer knowledge. The device contains not just our analysis of your vulnerabilities, but the technological solutions to protect against them. Defensive capabilities that would benefit all species in the Confederation." Confusion rippled through the assembly. Consul Zethran stepped forward cautiously. "Why would you provide us with such technology after what was done to your kind?" Ambassador Chen rejoined Ilara. "Because the true threat to all of us lies beyond the galactic rim. The same threat that we encountered in our exile. The same threat that forced us to develop the technologies we now possess. Ilara nodded, activating the final holographic sequence. It showed massive biomechanical constructs moving through deep space, entities of incomprehensible alien design, consuming entire star systems. We call them the Devourers. They are a non-sentient technological plague created by a long-extinct species as a weapon. They've been dormant for millennia, but they've awakened, and they're coming. The assembly hall erupted in panic. The speaker called for order repeatedly. We detected their approach 2 decades ago. Ilara explained when silence finally returned. Their trajectory will bring them to this galaxy within 50 years. Alone, neither humanity nor the Confederation could hope to survive. Together, we might stand a chance. Consul Zethran's compound eyes fixed on Ilara. You expect us to believe this convenient threat? This could be an elaborate deception to lower our defenses. The data is verifiable. Chen replied calmly. Your scientists can confirm our findings, but the choice is yours, Consul. Continue to fear the humans who might have destroyed you but didn't, or prepare for the force that will destroy us all without hesitation. Ilara stepped closer to Zethran, lowering her voice so only he could hear. 300 years ago, your ancestors feared what humanity might become if left unchecked. They were right to be afraid, but for the wrong reasons. We didn't become conquerors. We became survivors. And now, we might be your only hope for survival. The consul stared at her, mandibles clicking softly in what humans had learned was contemplation. Why not simply let the Devourers take us? Your revenge would be complete, with no blood on your hands. Ilara's expression softened slightly. Because that would make us what you feared we were, and we've spent 3 centuries proving that fear wrong. Hours later, after intense debate and verification of the human data, the Assembly voted. The resolution passed with a narrow margin. Formal acknowledgement of the historical wrong done to humanity, reparations in the form of a star system for human settlement, and the establishment of a joint Human Confederation defense initiative against the approaching threat. As the human delegation prepared to depart, Consul Zethran approached Commander Ilara in the antechamber. My ancestors would not understand this outcome, he said quietly. They believed extinction was the only safe option for dealing with your kind. And what do you believe, Consul? Ilara asked. The Zithrian's exoskeleton flushed a deep blue, an expression humans hadn't encountered before. I believe that in trying to prevent the rise of a dangerous species, we instead created exactly what we feared. The irony does not escape me. Not exactly what you feared, Ilara corrected. Something different, something forged in exile, and tempered by the memory of genocide. We returned not to destroy, but to reclaim our place among the stars, and perhaps to save them. As the human delegation boarded their shuttle, Lieutenant Cato moved alongside Ilara. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. 3 centuries of planning, just to become the Confederation's saviors rather than its executioners. Ilara watched as Arcturus Prime grew smaller in the viewport, the jewel of the Confederation now linked to humanity's future in ways none could have predicted. Our ancestors didn't flee into the void just to preserve human life, Kaito. They fled to preserve human nature, our capacity for both justice and mercy, even in the face of genocide. She turned to face the crew, her expression resolute. The children of Earth have returned, not for revenge, but for something far more powerful, redemption. Not just our own, but perhaps the galaxy's as well. The shuttle accelerated toward the waiting fleet, where preparations were already underway for the greater battle to come. The forgotten children of Earth had returned, transformed by exile, strengthened by memory, but ultimately defined not by the wrongs done to them, but by their response to those wrongs. The reckoning had come, just not in the form anyone had expected.